since his arrest on September 16, 2024. The rapper Diddy Combs is being held at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, New York. Almost 6 months after his music career took a back seat and his profile became associated with all kinds of controversies. The trial against him began on Monday, May 5th of this year. He was seen entering the courtroom for the first time, which will be the main stage for several weeks, where all those who were called to testify will appear, both by the prosecution and by his defense. In this video, we want to give you a brief summary of what was said in this trial, up until the day this script was written, May 22, 2025. Today, we'll learn about the testimonies from the magnate's victims, former employees, ex-gang members, and police officers who were actively involved in the case. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. If you like this content and want to know how everything continues, we can provide weekly updates until a final verdict is reached. If you wish, you can comment on this report with the word trial. It's also important to point out that if you want more details about the arrest of P. Diddy, the accusations that brought him to this place, and the controversies that surrounded his entire career, including the accusations that he was behind the deaths of other well-known rappers, you can watch all our videos on the subject. Welcome to your comprehensive guide on the trial of Diddy Combs. This is part 1. Let's do a quick summary of why Combs is so important in the world of music. And how did he manage to rise as one of the most powerful artists of recent times? Over the years, Combs had several nicknames: Puffy Puff, Daddy, P. Diddy, and Brother Love. His career started in the 90s, and from the beginning, he made it clear that he aimed to stand out, which he achieved by a wide margin. In fact, many people describe him as someone who managed to revolutionize hip-hop with great creativity and a very good eye for business. His first hits established him as a skilled songwriter, but also as an almost avant-garde producer. He would boast about launching the careers of true heavyweights, and from the very beginning encouraged the growth of his own record label. Diddy was focused on eliminating the middlemen, so he put his effort into fighting against conventional distributors and record labels. With the often paternalistic attitude, he sponsored innovative projects and offered emerging artists a showcase like no one had ever offered them before. He quickly gained recognition among his peers and started enjoying a privileged position. Everyone yearned to be touched by his magic wand. Figures like Faith Evans, Maze, 112 Mariah Carey, and Jennifer Lopez supported P. Diddy's label, which sooner or later would end up becoming a true reference point. Unsatisfied, the man diversified his investments and launched his business career, promoting major brands, making deals with other record labels, and organizing massive high-impact events. In 2023, he reached new milestones with a solo artist Grammy nomination. That same year, the Music Television Awards recognized him as a global icon. With over 3 decades of experience, his significance endured, and we would likely still discuss his accomplishments in multiple areas today. However, at the end of 2023, the rapper was accused of abuse by an ex-girlfriend. The commotion was not only immediate, but it also served to bring to light a record that was far from clean. When the first controversies erupted, there was no need for major investigations to discover that Combs had been facing multiple legal challenges for years. In May of 1999, he had been arrested as a suspect of assault. He was accused of weapons possession and bribery in an altercation that had ended with a shooting in a club. 2 years later, he was found not guilty. In 2003, he was sued for threatening his business partner with a baseball bat, and a little more than a decade later, he would repeat the pattern with his son's teacher. One after another, the evidence that Combs could become particularly violent and erratic kept piling up. There was talk about how he had silenced those who had dared to contradict him, and it was even suggested that he had a dark way of destroying the careers of those who decided not to join his record label. And that was just the tip of the iceberg. After the abuse accusations, dozens of people, some anonymously and others not, have accused Combs of sexual assault. There was talk about his private parties, the so-called white parties, and a lot of stories were woven around them. You can watch our previous videos for more info on the topic. For now, it's enough for us to know that all of this was enough for his homes to be raided and several charges to be brought against him. These include conspiracy to extort, human trafficking for sexual exploitation, and providing transportation for prostitution. The 55-year-old rapper, he also faces dozens of civil lawsuits from individuals who accuse him of using his influence to drug, assault, intimidate, and silence. After months in which particular attention was paid to selecting suitable judges and a jury that could be objective, at last the trial begins that will ultimately decide whether Combs is actually guilty of everything he is accused of. Casey Ventura, the musician's ex-partner, was the first to take the stand, which in 2023 would end up opening a real Pandora's box. When in 2024 people wanted to illustrate how violent P. Diddy could be, a terrible video went viral in which he was seen dragging a woman by her hair. In the same footage, taken by the security cameras of a hotel where the couple was staying, it also showed how the man kicked and hit his then partner. Sometime later, Israel Flores, a police officer who worked as a guard at that hotel, testified that in March 2016 Combs had offered him a wad of cash so he wouldn't report what had happened. The officer would claim that he hadn't called the police because the woman involved didn't want to answer questions and was only interested in being taken home. That woman, the one seen in the footage being assaulted, is actually Casey Ventura. Casey and Combs met when she was recruited by the businessman's label. The girl was 19 years old at the time, while he was 37. From the very beginning, an exploitative and manipulative relationship started to form. Casey took the stand showing an advanced pregnancy. There was pain in her eyes, but also the strength of someone who is no longer willing to run away. In her shocking testimony, the woman, who is now 38 years old, told how the good times in Hong Kong had ended too quickly. After a few weeks in which he had seemed attentive and loving, he had begun to show an unknown and disturbing side. Arguments became frequent, and with them came the beatings. According to her, Casey would usually end up on the ground being kicked. Very quickly, she had also understood that if she dared to leave that monster, her budding career would be immediately destroyed. After a year of a torturous relationship, Combs told her that he wanted to start organizing sex parties. The man explained to her that he was interested in an open relationship and in practicing voyeurism. She wasn't convinced that she would enjoy that, but she felt cornered again. Over time, these encounters started to become more and more frequent, eventually taking up a large part of their schedules. Ventura said that Combs began to develop various obsessions and perversions around those years. The parties started to last for days, and suddenly what happened at them was no longer within the realm of consent. One of the fetishes of Combs that has become most well known is the use of baby oil. The man believed that everyone who took part in his orgies should rub oil on their bodies to be, in his words, hot and shiny. With this goal in mind, he would have inflatable pools filled with oil. Getting into them wasn't optional, it was mandatory. Ventura went on to say that the rooms where these acts took place ended up full of blood, urine, and filth. Combs didn't care about the health of those who were nothing more than sex slaves to him. That way, he ended up hurting people and causing Casey a chronic infection. He also humiliated her, making others urinate on her. Even though the woman begged them to stop, he just laughed. The musician applauded with enthusiasm and satisfaction when she vomited in disgust. Casey claimed that all this treatment led her to become addicted to several drugs that Combs himself supplied to keep her in an altered and manipulable state of consciousness. Ventura also testified that Combs forced her to break up with the rapper Kid Cudi after threatening to blow up his car. After this, more precisely in 2018, when they were no longer a couple, Combs had shown up at her home and had abused her. That was the last straw for the woman, who began to speculate that she might never be able to escape her silent captor. That's why she had fallen into a spiral of self-destruction that in 2023 had led her to attempt to take her own life. During her third day as a witness, Ventura stated that Combs constantly reminded her that he had recordings of her participating in the aforementioned sex parties. That was his way of blackmailing her. If she ever spoke out, he would release it, destroying her public image. At the May 15th hearing, Combs' defense also questioned the singer and had her read explicit messages exchanged in 2009 to establish alleged consent. Combs' lawyers also made sure to point out that in November 2023, Casey had accepted a settlement, receiving $20 million. Upon hearing this, Casey broke down in tears and said she would return every last cent of that amount if she could erase all the harm the rapper and businessman had done to her. Additional witnesses stated that Casey was constantly mistreated, and everyone admitted their guilt for not acting in time to help her. They always claimed that the fear inspired by Combs was enough to stop them. Outside the courthouse, Ventura's lawyer shared the following statement on his behalf, and I quote, "This week has been extremely difficult, but also very empowering and healing for me. I hope that my testimony has given strength and a voice to other survivors, and that it can help those who have suffered, to raise their voices and to heal from abuse and fear. For me, the more I recover, the more I remember, and the more I remember, the more certain I am that I will never forget." This entire first stage of the trial left everyone shocked and moved, but there was still much more to come to light. And that's how our story goes back to the beginning. After Casey's turn, Jacinth Binder, Special Agent of Homeland Security Investigations, took the stand. She handled the logistics of Diddy's arrest on September 16th last year, and she was the one in charge of searching the Park Hyatt room where Combs was staying. The jury saw Binder's photos. According to People, there were Ziploc bags filled with drinking oil and lubricant at the site. There was also a medicine bottle with the name Fran Black, a pseudonym of Combs, and the label clonazepam. In addition, they found 2 smaller bags with pink powder. One was ketamine and the other was methylene-deoxymethamphetamine, usually known as ecstasy or crystal. There was also a black bag with $9,000 in cash. After Binder's testimony, the prosecutors called Dawn Richard, a former member of Danny T. Kane, a music group formed by Combs, to the stand. Richard confirmed physical assaults by Combs against Casey Ventura and joined the list of people who remained silent for more than a decade. Was it out of fear of the repercussions that could come from accusing someone as powerful as Diddy? The rapper's defense questioned Richard about the truthfulness of his testimony and implied that the artist only wanted to target Combs in a crude and desperate attempt to get attention and thus revive her career. Later, it was the turn of Kerry Morgan, Casey Ventura's best friend. Until 2018, Kerry emphasized the hell that Casey was living in. She angrily recounted how she had heard her friend begging while Combs kept beating her. She also said that Diddy had abused her and that Casey had witnessed everything without doing anything. The incident had damaged the women's relationship at that time. However, Kerry made it clear that she believed both were victims and that now she can see how the abuser had made sure to drive them apart. She even claimed that she had received $30,000 to never speak about the matter again. Diddy's lawyers insinuated that Kerry had distanced herself from Casey after noticing that the girl was unstable and violent, and they denied the alleged abuse. David James, a former assistant to Sean Combs, was also questioned. His testimony, James mentioned that Combs had between 25 and 30 pill bottles in his toiletry bag during his stays at hotels. One was shaped like former President Barack Obama's face. It is still unknown what kind of drug it was. George Kaplan, an ex-employee of Combs, said the man liked humiliating stars and celebrities. To that end, he recorded the aforementioned tapes in which everyone could be seen having sex. In recent days, another of the agents involved in the first raids on Diddy's homes presented his statement. Special Agent Gerard Gannon revealed that the authorities seized firearms, ammunition, a couple of cartridge magazines, platform heels, and lingerie. Narcotics were also confiscated inside a wooden box with a golden label. The jury saw photos of all these findings. As we can see, the situation for Diddy is not encouraging at all. But what is the possible sentence she faces? So far, Combs has pleaded not guilty to the criminal charges and rejects the civil lawsuits, which he describes as attempts to make a quick buck. Combs' legal team stated, and I quote, that he will prevail in court. The truth is that Mr. Combs never sexually assaulted or trafficked anyone, regardless of gender or age. His team also argued that part of the unfair accusations have to do with the fact that Combs is a man of color. On the other hand, they admitted that the rapper led a swinger lifestyle, but that didn't make him a criminal. If the musician is found guilty of conspiracy, he faces life in prison. If he is found guilty of human trafficking, his sentence could be up to 15 years. And if it is determined that he offered transportation for prostitution purposes, he could spend up to 10 years behind bars. Meanwhile, his team keeps insisting that until there is a verdict, it's an abuse to keep Combs in prison. A federal judge in New York denied the request for bail, claiming that Diddy poses a serious flight risk. In addition, prosecutors alleged that the man had violated prison rules and had contacted potential witnesses, always with the intention of buying their testimonies. Nowadays, Combs attends the trial without wearing prison clothes, thanks to a judge's authorization. He listens to everything attentively and with a frown. Despite everything that is coming to light, the widespread fear is that his influence will continue to serve as a shield, allowing him to escape the weight of the law. What other things will be discovered in the coming weeks? What will Combs himself say? Will new evidence appear? A sector of society remains hopeful, claiming this trial should be the first of many. Although it's likely that P. Diddy set up an entire mechanism of abuse, thanks to the fear he knew how to generate, the extra card. It's equally true that he couldn't have done many things without the consent and complicity of other powerful people. So, how far will this scandal reach? This is currently the most talked about question among judges, witnesses, and lawyers. To see how the story unfolds, remember to like and comment trial.